Hello, my name's Hemingway Jones. Welcome. Today, we're going to speak about my top 5 favorite fountain pens. I have about 80 or so fountain pens, so it's really tough to get to the top 5. And this is a very dynamic process, so sometimes my top 5 changes. So I thought this would be really interesting to get some insight into what I think is a really great pen, and you can see how some pens have remained in my top 5 consistently. Also, to make it more interesting, I'm going to limit it to 1 pen per brand. This will force me to make some tough choices, and I guarantee you that there'll be some shocking entries on this list. So come along, won't you? Let's get into it. My first choice is probably one of my more predictable choices today, so let's get it out of the way so that the other choices are that much more fun. Now this one comes from one of my favorite manufacturers of fountain pens, and the value proposition in this pen, I believe, is unbelievable. You get so many features at under $35 that it's just absolutely amazing. So if you haven't guessed, I'm speaking about the incredible TWSBI Eco. Now, some of those features are the fact that it's a piston fill. At that price, amazing. It holds quite a bit of ink. You get that Jowo nib on that generous TWSBI feed with all that ink behind it without any false starts, and just an absolutely incredible flowing ink that makes it a pleasure to write with. If anything, it's almost too smooth. It's just absolutely brilliant. The other choices from TWSBI are tempting as well. The Diamond 580 is a fantastic pen. It's beautiful. There are some upgrades, but to be honest, they really don't warrant the double cost of around $70 for that pen, as amazing as it is, especially in Iris. And speaking of Iris, the other pen that's tempting is the VAC 700R in Iris, which is absolutely brilliant that it's a VAC fill, so much fun to write with, but I just find myself reaching for the TWSBI far more often. Also, there's just something to be said for a more inexpensive pen. It allows you to be a bit more adventurous with your ink choices. The consequences of putting in a sheening ink or a shimmering ink are far less than in a much more expensive pen. Also, field stripping a TWSBI and cleaning it is really easy, so if you do get a little bit of ink staining, it's easy enough to clean that out of there. So you combine that amazing price tag, fantastic features, incredible performance, a beautiful demonstrator pen, and you're only out $35. How could this not be one of my absolute favorite pens? My next choice is a bit of a surprise. It's actually a surprise to me. And this is a pen that I just reach for so much lately. If you've received a letter from me in the letter exchange for Cognoscenti and Illuminati members, then it was probably written with this pen. It is just an amazing, expressive, interesting pen. And the surprising thing is that it sort of snuck up on me. I didn't realize how much I was using it and how much I loved it. And it was an impulse purchase. I was looking on Peyton Street pens. This pen came up. I wondered whether or not it was going to meet some of my criteria. I put out the money, I bought it, it came in, and before too long, we just bonded, and now this pen and I are inseparable. I am, of course, speaking of the Waterman 5 in celluloid. This is a Canadian Waterman pen with an ideal red, flexible nib that goes from fine to double broad. It is absolutely exquisite and expressive and allows me to express the full palette of my emotional complexity in one letter or piece of writing. If I want to whisper with subtlety, I can use a fine wispy line, or if I want to make a bold exclamation or a passionate loop, this pen supports me without any railroading or without running out of ink. The feed is absolutely magnificent. The flex is just unstoppable, expressive, and incredibly soft, almost brush-like. And if you choose not to flex it, it is still an incredibly smooth, finer line writer, absolutely brilliant in every regard. I adore this pen. I use it all the time. I also feel a strong connection with the past with this pen. I love the heritage of pens. I love that we can trace some of the lines back to their sources. And in this case, I'm right there back in history with a pen that's nearly 100 years old, still doing what it was manufactured to do, and frankly, doing it better than 99% of the pens that are manufactured right now. It's absolutely brilliant. Let's stay with that vintage theme. One of the problems with buying vintage pens is that they're often very delicate, or they have parts that can deteriorate and wear out, or maybe you don't even see that before you get it. So you have to have some care with them. Now, what's amazing is when you find a modern pen that does this sort of magic trick of beguiling you into believing that it is some sort of relic from the past, some kind of a perfection of a vintage pen in modern form. And that is the Conway Steward Churchill Honey Noir lever-filled fountain pen. One of my absolute favorites. This pen and I have been through a lot together. I absolutely love the gold Yovo nib and how smooth it is. It's tuned before you get it. The lever fill does not bother me at all. I know some folks have some problems with it. They worry about it breaking or being serviced, but frankly, that's easy enough to do. But this pen is absolutely gorgeous. I still remember that moment when I took it out of its box, and I was absolutely stunned by how much it resembled one of the bolder vintage fountain pens. It has Art Deco styling cues with rings around the cap, with the gold trim, the hallmarks. Just so much of this pen reminds me of vintage pens. The way the resin looks like tortoiseshell makes me feel like it's celluloid. I know it's not, but it just gives that impression, and it's translucent and it's quite light and perfectly balanced, and it just draws such a beautiful, expressive line. And I love how bold of a pen it is. I love that it makes a statement. It's incredibly expressive, and it certainly is its own thing. There is no confusing it with any other pen. Its styling cues are wholly its own, and it is very much a Conway Steward. And I love that this brand is resurrected, is true to its past, and is offering some of the finest writing instruments available on the market right now. This pen is absolutely brilliant, and I'm happy to list it as one of my top 5. My next choice is a wholly unique pen. There is truly nothing like this pen. It has so many strange and wonderful features that it makes it one of the most interesting writing experiences that there are. I'm speaking of the Visconti Homo sapiens Bronze Age. I really like this pen because it is so strange, so fun to write with. And the thing that really grabs you is its material. It's made from some portion of igneous rock taken from Mount Etna in Sicily. So you literally get a piece of Italy in this pen. It's mixed with the resin. It's supposed to be unbreakable, although I do not intend to test that theory. But what is interesting is that it gives this sort of lost recipe of Roman concrete feel to the pen. There's something ancient and elemental about it. It just has that antique feel, like it was carved out of a piece of stone. Yet, amazingly, it's not that heavy. It's also amazing that the nibs are made in-house. This one is 18 karat gold with rose gold plating. It's incredibly smooth, incredibly expressive. I've had no issues with this one. It is as smooth as the edge of a skate on a shiny ice rink. It is just a glorious writing experience, has a very wet and flowing feed that supports that. Absolutely brilliant. Some of the other styling cues as well are pretty great. The Visconti clip is a gentle arch that mirrors the arching span of Ponte Vecchio in Florence, which is where Visconti are made. I love little tie-ins like that. It just adds a layer of romance to this pen, which is pretty great. It also has a vac power fill mechanism that fills this up easily and quickly and with quite a bit of ink. The hook safe mechanism for the cap is interesting. It's certainly a bit complex and your finger is sort of there to feel it, so keep that in mind. But it does eliminate all those twists and turns while providing for a very safe cap. It's a nice compromise, it's a unique feature, and when you look at it, it provides a certain Greek meander almost to it, which if you think of it as another styling cue, it's very unique to Visconti and very interesting. So when you consider all these wonderful features, the incredible material, and the writing experience with this pen, it's just slightly mad, slightly strange, and it keeps me inspired and writing each time I use it. I'm very glad I own it, and this easily makes one of my top 5 pens. Now we come to my absolute favorite pen, and this one will shock you. From the moment I opened the box, I was absolutely beguiled by this pen, and it's held me in its spell ever since. This is a unique, expressive, strange pen that I just cannot get enough of, and I find myself reaching to all the time. I'm speaking of the Montblanc Egyptomania. Now what's shocking about this is it knocks out the Montblanc 149 from my top 5. And the reason is that ever since I got the Montblanc 146, I'm kind of preferring that sleeker feel of the 146 over the 149. So since they sort of are diluting each other now, it just leaves room for the Egyptomania. And the Egyptomania is an absolutely unique and extraordinary pen. And I think you can tell by this list that I love pens that are kind of weird and different and give you a wholly original writing experience or have an incredible story about them. And this Egyptomania is no different. It is manufactured in a way that they did pens 100 years ago. It's of a more diminutive size. It's also faceted, but it feels perfect in your hand. You cannot post it, but I'm okay with that. It has a very discreet piston fill mechanism that works wonderfully. But where this pen really shines, and boy does it shine, is in that soft, flexible gold nib embossed with this incredible Egyptian sacred scarab. It's absolutely beautiful, it's incredible to write with, it's soft, it's forgiving, it's very fluent and expressive, and I just love writing with this, whether it's a letter or in my journal or correspondence, whatever it is. I love this pen. Now, on the negative side, there's really no line variation to speak of, but that's okay. It's incredibly smooth, and it makes a really beautiful expressive line. And it's fine that it's soft, and that's where its unique experience is, that it's very bouncy to write with. It's just non-stop ink in just glorious color. Love it. There are some other really interesting characteristics of this pen. I love the stylized Montblanc Glacier at the top that's done in brass and is definitely a riff on their usual logo, and I like that they have that kind of confidence to change it up. It also has this interesting coin edge, which is also really beautiful in that brass cap. This pen is vintage inspired. It's glossy and reflective like obsidian. It's faceted and catches the light in very delightful ways, has a fantastic fill system, a very pliant and enjoyable nib, and it's an absolute joy to own and a joy to write with. It is by far my favorite fountain pen. And on that amazing bombshell, we're at the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've made it this far, please do subscribe. I'd love to have you along for this journey with us. And if you'd like to join the channel, membership is available as well. There are a lot of fun perks with being a member, and you become a producer of the channel. I'd absolutely love to have you. So I release new videos each Friday, and I have a live show Tuesdays at 8 p.m. So I promise you, we will see each other again very soon. So until then, take care of yourself. Thank you.